Today, I am so pleased to have on the show Thalia Bishop. Thalia has been on the Yogi MD podcast in previous times. Today, she is joining me on Health Raisers for the first time for a very special episode. Thalia and I have been working together for almost a full year.
Wow.
I am her private health integration coach, and boy, am I fortunate to be working with a dream client like Thalia. So without further ado, welcome,
Thank you.
Thalia.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you this question to get us rolling. My first question for you is, when I say the phrase healthy woman, what comes to mind for you?
Ooh, I like that likely has changed some for me. I think the first word that comes to mind is balance. Um, balance, shame-free. I'm not sure what the opposite of shame-free is.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I think finding balance in all the parts. So like work-life balance, staying active, figuring out ways to stay active. Um, Focusing on me, like taking the time for me, like that's not the thing. I think as women especially, we tend to focus on everybody else, which is great. Like we're supportive and we love our families and all of those things. But I think like if we're going to be healthy women, like we have to take that priority. It's almost like if there's something I'm supposed to do, that if somebody I cared about um needed to do it or whatever, and I would encourage them, I would help them do it, then like why wouldn't I do that for me if I'm really in a healthy space? So I think those are the first pieces that come to mind for me right now. And I say the like a shame-free piece because I think then I said exercise, right? I said staying active. And so then I realized that for whatever reason over a particular week, I didn't do that as much. So now I don't just have like I wasn't as active, but now see, I'm never consistent and I do this and I do that and blah, blah, blah. And so now I'm compounding the fact that, I didn't get to be as active and all the benefits that may have come from that with telling myself how horrible I am about it.
mm.
Um, and so I think that's a healthy piece too of, all right, I didn't exercise as much this week. I must have replaced that with something else. Hopefully, it was something I enjoyed or something that, needed to be done. And, today's another day. So, yeah.
Thank you. Brilliant. So, I'm curious to hear from you. Before we started working together, what was or were your health challenges?
Um, I think, like the health, the one, I definitely did a lot of the shaming, which I think was bad, right? I
Mm,
did a lot of that. You're not doing enough of this, you missed this, like that kind of thing. So I think that was a big challenge because that doesn't encourage you to do better, right? That just makes me feel bad and now I'm a bad person and on and on and on. And so I think there were things like wanting to get my weight under control, wanting to get my eating under control, um, and realizing I think I kind of knew, but I don't know if I totally realized it. Like I can't really focus on any one of those things. Like it has to be a holistic.
mm,
I have to get the mental stuff in order. I have to get the emotional stuff in order to really be able to commit to those things. And so I think that was part of my challenge then,
mm,
was just kind of feeling like I was all over the place.
mm-hmm.
And so like this week I did really good on this thing, but then that other thing really felt like it just kind of felt like um, and so yeah, I think that was part of my biggest challenge then. And even realizing how much I was doing it. I think I always realized that I did the, you know, shaming piece. I think some of that, we picked up from previous generations. I picked up from previous generations, but even realizing like, oh, like, yeah, why would I want to work out more after I just like totally went in on myself and told myself how horrible I was? Like, that's not inspirational.
That's a great point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'm hearing balance. Okay,
Hmm.
lovely, lovely. Why did you choose to work with me over any other coach?
So I think it helped that like for me it was watching, I think as you did more and more with like Yogi MD and the different work you were doing, there just seemed to be, you seemed balanced. Like, I guess it kind of felt like, you know, this is somebody who like truly seems to love what they are doing and made
Mm.
very intentional life choices to like create the life that they want. It's like I want to do that. And I think just feeling the time that we've been in each other's space, feeling like I could trust this person with this. Because that's the hard part too. Like it's a good
Mhm.
question you ask that like not everyone can be trusted with that. And not even because they have bad intentions. I think sometimes people even bring their own stuff into a space and not even realize it and things like that. So yeah, I think watching that, seeing that balance, like listening to other podcasts and hearing that come through made me feel like this is I think a safe space, but also a space that would like encourage me and hold me accountable. And it wasn't kind of like, yeah, anything you say is perfect, Thalia. That's fine. No, it's kind of like, well, you said this was a thing. Like, where are you going with this? Like,
Mm. Mhm.
still following up on things,
Mhm.
but definitely not feeling like, I wasn't supported. And I think that was part, like, I think this would be a good space. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I will also add for those who might be listening and are not aware, Yogi MD podcast is, as I mentioned, a previous iteration earlier and was my previous business. And now it's NPK Health Integration. So just a little bit of clarity. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Um, so, was there anything or is there anything that's particularly effective? In our work together that's really helped you and why?
I think there are a lot of things. It's funny as you were reading that, my brain is like kind of running through or asking that. I think one thing that is especially effective for me is um we don't there seems to be this really good balance of like what we talked about before, right? So even sometimes like we'll have a session and it may be like an official kind of recap, like you're just kind of going over what we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, we're dealing with the stuff now. It's not like we spend a whole session doing that, but it has been really helpful to me to realize like, I don't know, if that brings something up in a session and it's kind of like, yeah, like that was a thing that you said coming into this, or that was the thing, like that was a goal. And so I think that piece is one that like I didn't realize how important that would be, to realize that like you've been one, it's nice because it's like, all right, I've been doing this work for a while and I'm clearly committed to it. um and in some areas have made some progress. In some areas I might be pretty close to where I was. But I think that piece was helpful, that it was kind of like, and seeing like the different areas that we work with, how those things kind of link together, which is what I wanted, right? I wanted a space where I could kind of recognize that you can't separate those things.
Mm.
Like the things that I'm working on are going to include an emotional piece and sometimes a physical piece and all of those things, and I have to figure out how to balance those together. And I think being able to sort of have that in every session or every meeting has been really helpful. Sometimes even when I would kind of like forget, like, oh, that's something I have been working on. And um I've made some progress there, or I haven't just kind of forgotten all about that thing or whatever it is. Like I think that piece has been really helpful. So it doesn't feel like we're just kind of like starting from scratch each time, or yeah.
So let's get a little bit more granular. What is your favorite or most effective outcome or takeaway in terms of results that you've seen since we've been working together?
Hmm. Um, I think the giving the patience of myself, or the giving myself grace. Like I think it's also interesting because we've each session, most sessions, I think not every session, you'll do sort of a piece where we're doing some form of meditation. Um, and I feel like that's a perfect example of where I see some of that sort of shift, because there was a time when I'm like, I'm not doing it right. So like you're
Mm.
speaking and I'm like, I'm not doing it right. I'm messing this up. I'm like, oh. And then over time getting more and more comfortable with it. And then I remember, it wasn't the last session. It might have been a few sessions ago. Like I fell hard asleep. Like I was out. Like suddenly I heard your voice and I was like, I think had probably been saying for my name for a few seconds before it even like clicked to me. And part of why I like had to smile at that was that like I had clearly cleared my mind enough during that meditation that I could. right? Because if my mind is going, which I find out a lot of nights, if my mind is going, I'm probably not going to fall asleep, right? Because when you're doing it wrong, or what you think about you, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing this, and like if that's noise is happening, um, and so I think that kind of like be able to sort of like let that piece go, like just relax and even that I fell asleep. Like in the moment, I was like, "Oh, sorry about that, my bad," but really was kind of like, "Wow," as opposed to like, "How could you fall asleep?" Is more like,
Mm,
"Well, that must have been really relaxing."
yeah,
Um,
letting go of judgment. I like that.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think that has been, and it's a work in progress. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not saying I don't judge myself at all anymore, but I think that has been one of the best pieces that has come out. And I'd like to believe most times when I do it now, I'll sort of catch it. So now I'm kind of like, you know, as I do it, it's like, well, whether that's not helpful or, what about this? Like doing that piece for myself, I think has been a piece that has been really, really helpful for me.
Love it. Love it. Where do you think you would be now if we hadn't started working together last April?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, still spinning in the same way, still trying to like connect it all. Um, and it's so interesting too, like, I a lot has happened over the last few months where I've had to like realize like you got to slow down, you got to like whatever. And I think it, yeah, I think I'd have just been stuck in that space for a lot longer, like the judgment piece and holding on and all the things that you're doing wrong, or I focus on this, but that thing falls off, and not really feeling like I'm like really completing, or you said you were going to do this thing and you still haven't done it, like that kind of thing. Um, and I think some of the life stuff that has come up has definitely helped me to again for some reason just slow down keeps coming to mind. So I think that the inability to do that, the getting caught up in the your you know, all the weight and all the things I'm not doing and whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
still would have been stuck in that. Whereas now I feel like um a lot of the work we've done together has helped me to just kind of like calm down a little bit about those things and kind of be at peace like this is what it is. Yeah.
Thank you for
I
that.
don't know if I answered that, but that's what comes to
You
mind.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, if someone is on the fence about working with me, what would you say to them?
Do it. I think it's funny. I think what we do, I'll speak for myself. I think another thing that I would do a lot of times, and I'm sure I did before we worked together, was like, I need to get these things together. Like I know this thing is going on, right? I think it's a combination of, just something people do. I think it's also a combination of I'm feeling not like a total hot mess, but like a bit of a hot mess. And I don't need anybody else to witness that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get myself together some more and then I'll do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get my stuff in order and then I'll reach out and do this thing. And I think the reality is, at least for me, was one, that's clearly a very judgmental mindset. But also like we never get to that point. It's like a lot of the goals that we set sometimes of like when I get to here, I'll do that thing. And suddenly for me, I started to realize of like, or you can tap into this amazing person, this amazing resource and help you to get to that point. Um, and so I think I'd just be like, do it. I'd be like, there's also a certain degree of like you presenting it. It's clear even in the documentation like that I filled out at the beginning. There's no like prerequisite to working with Nadine, or like there's no like we don't have you don't have to have whatever done. And so it's kind of like wherever you are, you ask really great questions, and I filled out the documentation, and it didn't feel like, oh well, I haven't done that thing, so I can't start yet. I would imagine my guess is that the people that you work with are all at very different places. And so wherever you are, you're good.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
could not have said that better myself. And yes, that is the point of the original health questionnaire. It is meant to be a place for you to find some compassion for yourself and also to be very realistic. I'm very practical, as you know. So it's, well, what are the challenges you're dealing with right now, but also celebrating the strengths, because maybe you didn't realize in this particular area of your life, say in your social health, you have a great set of people who are there to help you, or maybe not looking at it in a punishing way, that your social health is better than you thought it was. You have a great support system and you can actually celebrate that because they're going to support you to help you boost you in other areas of your life. So absolutely, thank you for saying that. And I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you for placing the trust in me that you have, and to allow me to continue to be and practice the person I want to be. I have these adjectives that I use,
Uh-huh.
and they spell casa, as you know,
Oh,
the Spanish word for home. The first word is courageous. You allow me to continue to be courageous. It's not always easy in a coaching space not to be prescriptive or,
mm,
telling you something that I see, but holding the space for you and for me to be a better, more effective listener and partner for you. Aware, aware of what's happening for you. Sometimes you need those extra few minutes for that nap, and that is perfectly fine before we get on the call. Steadiness, holding that space for you. I'm steady. And accepting of
mhm.
where we are in this moment together, accepting of where you are in your journey and supporting you the best way I can in that. And also nudging you to hold yourself
Yeah.
accountable, as you said so well at the top. So thank you, Thalia. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough again for um, how you are enhancing my life, my purpose, and my passion.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.